What's going on, guys? All right, so I was told that I should probably do a video on PLTR. So I haven't looked at this one in a while. I did have it in this rising wedge, which also I guess could be perceived as a big bull pennant, but obviously there's not too much data going on here. If you know about PLTR, then you know that it's a very, very solid company here. And, it got hit with this correction, just like everything else did in the stock market here. So, basically, whoops, the breakdown. Let me get rid of some of these trend lines that are in the way here so I can grab this. Maybe I have this trend line drawn wrong. I don't. But either way, the breakdown probably would have been as big as this, but, the buyers bought it up. So, this was the breakdown target that I had, believe it or not. And we did not go that low, which was good to see. And we're getting some nice rounding structure in here. So, I'm not in this play. So, I'm just kind of, looking at this, just kind of taking a look at it for you guys here. So, let's take a look at what it's been doing here. So basically, it fell out of that rising wedge, and it got this beautiful rounding action here, as you can see on this curve indicator that I like to use here recently. And so it did get a nice bounce. It looks like it bounced off the 0.618 at 22.67, with the exception of this big wick that went down to 2015. So looking at this, you can see that we had a very, very nice run up here since we did finally find some support around this 0.618. And as of right now, it looks like it's getting rejected or resistance. I wouldn't even say rejected yet at this 0.5 fib, which is 26.96. So, of course, from my point of view here, it would be if, in fact, you could get support and confirmation on top of this $27.2707 level here that it seems like it's keeps on trying to get above, then of course this would be a very, very bullish sign for it to try to run back up to its old resistance here, roughly 31.19. Now you can see it went up a lot higher than that, but this 31.25 is the 0.382. So that would be the next level that I would be looking at for it to possibly get rejected at or flag out below before heading up higher. And, ultimately it looks like it is trying to get back into whether this was a bull pennant or not. If it was a bull pennant, we could look at a very, very bullish case for it long term to see where would this thing be heading. And if this was a bull pennant and it gets back into it, then your breakout target of it would actually be looking at 66.58 on a very, very bullish scale. Now, of course, we're not even close to there yet, and we still have a lot of resistance above here to look at. Looking at the 4-hour RSI, it looks like it is potentially trying to create, just like everything else in the stock market lately that I've been looking at, because I've never found so many of these in the stock market except as of late. But we could be looking at this being a left shoulder, this creating a head, and then maybe this creating a right shoulder here, depending on what it does now from here on out. So, we know for a fact that this area is very, very strong resistance, and it's testing that right now. So to buy it right there, right now, wouldn't be the smartest idea, just for the fact of you're buying resistance, right? So you'd want to buy once this thing could break through this 27 level, maybe come up to this 27.84, back test this 26.99, and hold support here. And once you notice it's bouncing on this 27 roughly area here, then you know that you are getting it at a very good point. Because, of course, if we do have another big correction here in the stocks, it could come back down. Well, let's look at the Ichimoku cloud and see what we have here. So, we have a lot of resistance above. This red is going to be very, very strong resistance when you get there. This green cloud is even going to be some resistance when you get there, roughly around that $28, as well as these moving averages here, which you just had this little bit of a death cross here when this 50 shorter EMA crossed this 200 longer EMA, which surprisingly didn't push the price down as of right now. If we look at the TD sequential, though, the next 4-hour candle here will actually be a TD9 flash unless it creates a 1 and resets it, which can happen here. So that being said, usually when you get a TD9 flash, you either get a correction, maybe to this 24.65 area, or you get a pump and then the following candle ends up getting corrected, which would be the bullish case here. So, very, very minor here. It looks like it could make a little M, but it has much, has a lot of room to run up here on the RSI on the 4-hourly. But on the hourly here, it looks like it's creating bearish divergence. But, of course, if it gets a nice pump out of here, then that would cancel it out. But for now, you can see where this dotted line cursor runs all the way up to the top, up where the chart action is and where the RSI is. We're higher here on the left. And on the right here, we're lower on the right on the RSI, but whereas if the price action here, we're actually higher on this right than the left. So that's bearish divergence that you'd want to keep your eye out for. We have these, obviously we have these fibs already here, and we could, for a smaller term play here, we could actually use these fib retracements on this hourly to try to figure out where the next move, if it was to drop, could find support if it can't get above this $27 mark here. So below this 27 mark is 25.31 as a pretty good area, because you can see here that on the hourly, when it wicked down, it wicked just below it here, but roughly it's been maintaining this 25.31 area. So if in fact it was to not continue up and roll down here, you're going to get some strong support at this 26, which is the hourly 20 EMA. And then you're going to get support at this 25.31 area as well, which could be something that something to look out for. So if we look at the daily here, we can see that we kind of, it's not really a scary spinning top. So, I'm not really going to call it too much of a spinning top here. We did close right above this 25.31, which is a good sign here. And as of now, we actually pumped right up above this 20 EMA on the daily. So that's a good sign as well. So looking at this here, although it looks like it had a little double top, if it does correct down to this 25.31 or as low as 24.33, it looks like it will just reset it just enough to run up and finally get above here and maybe bang its head against this 28.30 for a little while here. It's a little bit tough to say just yet. I'm trying to look around for all signs here. So on the weekly time frame here, you can see the nice bounce off of the 618, the 22.67, and on the weekly as well, we bought up and look like either we are right on it or right below the 21 EMA on the weekly. And this RSI is looking like it's rolling over, which is a bullish sign. And this candle here sort of looks like a trend reversal candle because it's a hammer candle. And at the top of a trend, that's a bearish candle. But at the bottom of a trend, that's usually a bullish candle. But of course, you want to see what this following week candle is actually going to be. Because if you get another red candle here, it's not going to be a good sign for it for a little while. But if you can get a nice green candle in here and actually pump above this last closing price here and close on this following week above 27, then you're definitely looking at some bullish price action here. Let's go to the 45-minute and see if we can see anything. So on the 45-minute, it kind of looks like it could be making a very small potential head and shoulders pattern. But it could also be making a very ugly looking W as well. So obviously there's two sides to the coin here. If I was going to look at the bullish case here, I would say that this was a small little reversal setup here on 45 minutes, sorry. And, as of now, you have this 45.20 EMA coming up that it seems like it's been liking to bounce off of, which is right around that 26.31 we talked about. And as this continues up and we get squeezed between this 20 and this 100 EMA, as well as this $27 resistance here, this could potentially actually push us up a little bit further here. So let's kind of see what pattern this is creating here and see if there's any points of interest here on what this could be. So if we look at it like this, minus that little breakdown there, because, that could have just been fear and uncertainty that caused it to push it down a little bit, maybe stop some people out. And that happens occasionally. But as long as it didn't close below it, it still doesn't. I guess it still closed below, but as long as it doesn't close below it on the hourly, right? Because you have this candle that dropped, this candle closed below, but the following candle blasted up above, and now you got your close here. Not too much. Volume's not too bad, I guess. Well, that being said, we really need to break out of this level here. So if we look at it from a bullish standpoint anyway, then we can see where we could break out if we broke certain levels here. So if this right here was actually a bull pennant right here, and you do get a nice bullish price action here coming on, on Monday even, right? Then I'm just going to get rid of this fib because we already know the levels here, and it's getting in my way. There we go. So if we were to break this 27 level and we got a nice break, now it won't go up here in one move, but if you can get support above this trend line of 27.06, then you actually could get a pretty solid move with a targeted move of 29.01, but with the exception of this resistance right here at 28.41. So that's kind of what I'm looking at right now for PLTR. We'll have to keep in mind that there could be some bearish divergence forming on the hourly. And we'll have to keep in mind that we're hovering right below very strong resistance. But the uptrend is very strong. We're nowhere near overextended on the RSI. So depending on how this plays out here, if it ends up being bearish divergence, and it falls out of this whatever. And, we could do a smaller target too and just say, say this is just an average pennant and it's not a bull pennant here. Let's do a conservative target here. The conservative target of this would bring you up to 27.65. So if you do get a break of this and you come up to 27.65, you could actually come back down here and retest and backtest this as support. So that's something that you're going to want to keep in mind, is that this level of support, roughly around $27 even, is going to be a very good confluence both on the way up and on the way back down. Because on the way down, of course, you want that to flip to new support. And once it does, that'll be a very, very good confirmation. And it doesn't mean you rush right into it if you're not in this already. And if you're in this, you could be potentially averaging down on these lower ones, of course, but just know that you have very, very strong resistance right now at this $27 mark. Once you flip it to new support, then you are pretty much geared to start heading up to the next pattern here. And then on the hourly as well, as a very good sign, is that you have this potential golden cross coming in, which is the 50 EMA crossing the 200. So, there's two sides to each coin here, and there's every which way you can look at this, bullish and bearish scenarios. So you will just know that this is going to eventually get pushed up here, whether it comes back down, back test this 20, then goes up, right, and then just resets this a little bit and you get a nice W, which if we look at the MACD here and see what we have going on, it looks like the MACD was looking like it was going to cross here on the hourly, but now looking at it, it kind of looks like you actually might get a nice W out of this if nothing, comes about it in the morning there and screws that up at 9:30 open. But at 10:30, I would be looking to see if it's getting a close above that $27 or not. And that'd be kind of where I am on, that's where my stance would be on that. Now you could look at this and say, what caused this original pump here? And just like everything else that I've been kind of looking at in the stock market here, you have a couple different ways to look at this. If we get rid of this completely and say, okay, that pattern played out, where are we now, right? You could do this, and you could say, based off of this wick and this wick, we created a very, very big falling, very, very big falling wedge, where your resistance was right here at 24.35. When you broke out, you shot all the way up here to 26.20, and then you came back down. You back tested this line as support, and you bounced off it a few times. And once you saw this going on, that was your time of entry. Not on this big pump here with the big volume, right? You could have entered here if you saw your technicals and you said, hey, this thing looks good, and you entered somewhere down here at this 24.50. But look at this, pumps, and then it comes back down and back tests. And it came down to 24.24. And then it continued up. So, and then it created another little pennant here, per se, whether you go off of that. You could say this was another pennant, and then you shot up. You created a small rising channel or rising wedge. This is how I would break everything down here. If I was like playing this, I'd be drawing all these. Looks like we're in a rising wedge. We have a little breakdown of this rising wedge. So I'd say, say it was still in this rising wedge. What could this breakdown be? I'd take my measure move from the end of it here and, take my measure move here. I'd say, what could we break down to if we fell out of here? I'd put it right around the end of that pennant, and I'd say, okay, we can break down to 25.77. So you could expect that, but you have this 20 EMA as well, which it did pretty much come down and almost touch this 200. There's no way really to say on that as far as that, but needless to say, this was your breakdown target there. It wicked a little bit lower due to fear and scared and uncertainty. And then now you kind of bought back up, and you got a nice bounce off of that level, spinning top. Now reversal setup, and now what are we doing here? You could take a look and say, okay, what are we in now? And it just kind of looks like a small bull pennant here. So if we were going to look at this as a small bull pennant, then you would say, all right, we're looking bullish. We're looking like we're going to get a MACD cross back positive on the hourly here. We're going to get some golden crosses coming in here. So what would be our next move out of this? And this is how I kind of break down everything when I'm trading, if I'm, doing swing trading and stuff like that. So then our break out of this would be the size of this bull pennant, and that would be to 27.69, which worked out perfectly to what we were just talking about a little earlier. And then that's your breakout target. That is only if you can get support above 27. So then you would look for a big pump to that spot, a nice big volume candle, and then most likely it'll come back down and back test this. Maybe create another falling wedge that brings you up further until ultimately you head up slowly, consolidating, correcting, and, just slowly making your way up here to the overall target, which we can go over right now, and then I'm going to end this video. So if I get rid of all this and we say, what is this target? Because this is a massive falling wedge. So this targeted move here, and like I said, it's not going to go up in one day. It'll have a nice breakout, maybe have a bearish pattern that brings you down, resets the RSI a bit, goes back up a little bit, so on and so forth, just kind of like how it's going right here. And ultimately, your targeted move out of this, and it's not going to be exact, and you're going to hit some resistance in some normal areas, but your targeted move out of that is actually 38.16. And if we looked at the price range, you can see that based off of this wick here, or you could even go off of this price action here, you can say that, look at that. It's like a glove right there, right? That is perfectly a targeted move to the T of this old resistance that you guys, whoever's in this, might have known, has a very, very hard time getting above. So if you were making a swing trade here, of course you would have entered here, but you could have in fact enter at this $27 level confirmed. Once it breaks up, don't feed into it. Let it come back down, retest $27, make a new pattern, see it's a bullish pattern. Okay, it's holding it. I'm going to enter and put in a long, and then I'm just going to put my stop loss. You could do a really low stop loss. You could put your stop loss below these EMAs, 24. You could put your stop loss below some potential fib levels where I would just take it from this little dip to where we are now, and I'd say, all right, so I'm going to enter at 27, and I'm going to put my stop loss at 25.20. Depending on your risk to reward, of course, that would be kind of how you could play it. Or, of course, you could just play that pennant itself and say that I'm going to put my stop loss underneath this potential pennant. If you want to have an even lower risk potential here, right? Then you would say this is our pennant. If we break above this pennant and get support above this $27, and then I enter because I got it pumped, came back, confirmed support, held here for a little while, created a bull flag or something that looked nice and healthy. Maybe it came down, wicked down to this 26.91, bounced back, whatever. Your stop loss would be underneath this pattern, and I'd probably go underneath the lowest point. Maybe put my stop loss at 26.39, something like that, for a very, very low risk trade there, right? So, like I said, though, this thing could wick down all the way back down to this level. So for me, if I was entering at 27, I wouldn't put a stop loss at 26.45 because I feel like that's way too close of a range for it to potentially wick down and stop me out and then head back up. So I would actually take this last wick here and say I'm going to put my stop loss below this 25.16, and I'm going to put my stop loss at 25, 04 or something, or maybe 24.99, or you could even go as low as 24.24 if you really, really don't care if it comes, you really believe that, hey, it's going all the way up here, which I believe as well. So that's kind of where I'm at with this, and depending on how everything plays out, that's really the main resistance that you guys are butting your head against right now, and that's what you need to keep your eyes on in there. So that's how I'm looking at it. So, I mean, if you have this on your charts, one thing you could do is you could go like this and make it all nice and clean looking and go from the highest wick and pull this down and then pull this down to here and run this across and say, boom, there's my entry, support above here. Here's my stop loss right below here. If it falls below there, it's coming back down to here, 22.60. If it goes above here, it's most likely heading up here with the exception of a lot of resistance on the way up. So yeah, that's where I'm at with PLTR. It looks pretty good. I'd probably look for an entry depending on how this bearish divergence plays out. It doesn't have to play out negatively. It can continue up and then come back down, retest that 27, and then so on and so forth. But yeah, hopefully this helps. And if you're not subscribe to this channel, subscribe, hit the like button if you enjoy this. And if you have any other tickers, feel free to leave them in the comments section below. Good luck with your trades. Hopefully Monday's a nice green day.